Welcome back to Deer Valley Homestead with me, Andy. And you may also see Beata on the video this week as well. I apologise for missing a couple of weeks' videos, but this retaining wall project has really taken over my life. I have been working super hard on it, and the end result is a really cool wall and this video. And here's a reminder of what this looked like just 6 months ago. It was overgrown, there was a couple of buildings in the way. It was crazy. Originally, I did want to take this digger down, however with the slope it just wasn't possible. And if you're wondering why we didn't get a larger digger, this is the reason. The main reason we got the digger was actually to dig out in this old barn. They used to keep their cattle in here, and the ground was just so compacted. Even with the pickaxe I was struggling, so it just made sense to get the mini digger in. We actually took the mini digger and the mini dumper for 4 days, and we got so much done. There was such a big force multiplier for us. We dug out the barn, we dug out most of this wall, we removed a couple of grates from this property as well. And in our other house, the main Deer Valley Homestead, did a new driveway, we took out an apple tree, we dug a very small pond, and I'm sure there was something else. We took out a couple of big concrete posts that were just too heavy to do by hand. It was a very small mini digger, but I have to say it did really well for us. I would have loved to keep this old retaining wall, however, between the grapes and the blackberries that have been growing through it unchecked for the last 10 years, it just wasn't in any kind of condition to be kept. It was collapsing in a number of places, and so we made the decision to take it out and start anew. About a week after the mini digger had left, I got to work on the wall, and I immediately regretted not doing more with the mini digger. It's just always hard to know exactly how much to dig, how much to move before you really get in there and measure and get going. In the end, I spent a lot of hours digging, and honestly, I don't mind this too much. I'm not one who has ever been able to visit a gym or something like that, go running, cycling. It's just not in my nature. However, a good physical job like this I can really get into and enjoy, and it has the added bonus of some good exercise as well. I ended up doing this wall in about 3 meter sections. Some of them were 4 meters, some of them were 2. But I just found that that was a manageable amount to do. Here's a bit of the old wall, and you can see the reason why we're getting rid of it. This whole corner of the barn has washed out, blown out, and is on a fast track to the bottom of the hill.
Alright, well, this is as close as I think I can get it. I've measured it about 15 times. And my plan now is to mix some concrete and throw it down in here. I think if I remember rightly, it should only be 4 mixes. And normally when I say something is 4 mixes, it's about 15. So we'll see what happens. It's about 20 centimeters deep in the middle and 10 on the edges. So we'll see. None of the rebar is touching the ground. I realize you can't see that very clearly, but none of it is touching the ground. So it will be fully concreted in, I guess is the right word. I'm going to bring down 4 of the big bricks that we're going to use, and if all goes well and quickly with the concrete, then I'm going to try and wet set those in the top of the concrete and get those in their position, because that should give it a better seal.
It was about the time that I did the first mix that I remembered that the concrete mixer was actually broken. And it is working if you hold the button down, but of course that's very time consuming and not the most efficient use of time. I wish I'd remembered to order the part that I need to fix it. However, that didn't happen, so every mix was done by hand holding the button.
That was hard work.
I'm sure it's pretty obvious when you watch my videos, but I would like to point out anyway that I am by no means an expert in any of these things that I'm doing. This is the first retaining wall I've ever built, it's the first bricks that I've ever set in concrete, and I don't claim to know what I'm doing. I just do a bit of research, check, ask a few people, try and get some good advice, and I go for it. I find the best way to learn how to do something is doing it yourself, and of course any of the mistakes you make, like here where I put the first 2 bricks upside down, you just figure out as you go along. I ordered 180 of these bricks and we ended up using 162. They were 50 centimeters long, 25 centimeters high and 20 centimeters wide. If you've made it this far in the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe even drop a comment down below. It costs you absolutely nothing and it will really help us out, and we really appreciate it.
Jesus. Looks like I got one pretty good. Jesus, even got it right that way.
In the end, across the whole project, I used 7.5 cubic meters of a sand gravel mix. It was 0.8 centimeter gravel mixed with sand. It's sort of a pre-mix that they sell for making your own concrete here. Used 2.5 cubic meters of sand and 3 cubic meters of gravel. On top of that, we used somewhere around 45 to 50 bags of cement, although I didn't keep an exact tally, so I can't tell you exactly. I've never ever seen anyone using a rubber mallet to tamp down bricks before. However, it was just what worked for me, and I have to say I found it a really effective way to get them in the exact position that I wanted them. This was the first run of bricks. I think it was about 4 meters long, and I was super happy when I saw this video and I saw how nice and straight it was. I did put the laser level on there and it was within a centimeter, so about ½ an inch all the way down, which for me, as someone who's never built a wall before, I was really happy with. I'm sure if it was a professional of any kind, they'd probably be quite disappointed. I did make a full video on this drainage system. It does the 2 roof drains and the French drain that goes on the inside of this retaining wall. So if you want to see that, subscribe to the channel and head on back through the videos and you'll find it in there. Somewhere around here is where I made one of my mistakes, and I ended up with one brick in the foundation that was just a little bit too high on one corner, and I didn't manage to correct it as I went up through the wall. So in the finished product, or the finished wall in that area, there's a little raised bit, not sure what else to call it. It's only about 1 centimeter along the whole length of the wall. It's not that obvious to the eye, but I know it's there, and I wish I just ground down one of the bricks or laid it better in the first place. I also got this super cool concrete vibrator. It's the first time I've used one of these, and it was very satisfying to watch the amount of air bubbles come up out of the concrete. I'd actually troweled it down already, thinking that I'd got most of it, and I was like, I wonder how effective this is, you know? And wow, was it effective.
Alright, well, I'm not filming as much at the moment because every day is just a wall day and there's only so many clips of a wall you can put in. But I did just want to show you this little bit. I did manage to get this pipe lower down, so it will now be just in the bottom of the foundation, and the next layer of brick will go on there just fine. Alright, well, it's another set of foundation in. I had to use some clamps because I made one of the mixes too wet, and this was the best way to hold the bricks in place. Not the best thing I've ever done, but it happens, so I'll not show it. And you can see the foundation. So these bricks are set into that foundation and they go down in there by about 5 centimeters. So they are solidly in there.
In total, I used about 180 meters of 6mm rebar and 18 square meters of the panel rebar. I don't know the proper name for it. Some people might call it a cattle panel, something like that. The one you would normally put in a concrete slab.
This one only really has a tiny foundation and it probably doesn't even really need that. The height difference between the right and the left is only about 15 centimeters. So it's definitely overkill. But I only want to do this once. The rest of this, you've seen this bit. And then the last bit is this one. This one again is huge. It's about 70 centimeter foundation at the end down there. I may or may not dig out some of the earth on this right side in the future. So it's kind of a hedge against that. Even if I do, it'll only be 10 or 15 centimeters down, but it's possible. So we've gone for the really big foundation, a deep foundation, let's say, just in case.
You may spot that little high spot that I was talking about before. If you look closely, it's about 1 meter, so 2-3 bricks along the wall, and you can see it's there. When you look at the wall from a distance, you don't see it. When you put your eye along it to look for it, you can see it, definitely. Apart from the fact that the old wall was falling down, what we really want to achieve with this wall is some nice flat ground in front of the house where we can put a table out, sun chairs, whatever it may be, barbecue, and just have that nice flat ground where we can enjoy ourselves. Most of this property is on a hill, and we actually really like that. It's a great thing for us. It gives us some nice different areas to put the plants in. It's really good with the vines and the fruit trees. Also means that the rain, which can be quite persistent here, all drains away very quickly. But we did want that flat area, and hopefully by the end of the video you'll see a little bit of that starting to come into play. I threw this clip in just to remind you of how it looked when we started out 6-7 months ago. B took down these 2 little houses and I was busy getting rid of the blackberries, and I think actually on this day I was cleaning in the barn as well. But what a change from that bit of footage. That house you saw is where that pile of dirt is now. By the time I got to the end of this wall, I started to find it quite easy to set these blocks. I think the first couple of blocks that I put in were about 10 or 15 minutes each. Just carefully adjusting, checking, adjusting, and all that kind of stuff. And by the end here, I was getting one in every minute or so. It just got a lot easier the more that I did it. And I think that applies to a lot of things in life. If I was to offer one piece of advice, it would definitely be to do with the mortar mix. And that is, when you get the right mix, it is so easy to put these bricks in. When you have it too sloppy or too tough, it's awful to use. And by the end I got fairly good at mixing it, but at the beginning there were definitely a few dodgy ones. Towards the end of the project, I did get some help, and that was with the cement mixer. It's one of my neighbours, and he kindly agreed to hold the button on the cement mixer while it was mixing. In total, if I remember rightly, it was about 95 mixes we did, and that included the foundation, which was about 40 mixes, and then when we filled in the wall, which is what I'm doing here, it was about another 55 mixes. I would have loved to get in a concrete truck and all that kind of stuff, but I would have ended up with the truck, the crane and everything else. It was just going to be too expensive, and at the end of the day my labor is pretty much free, so that was the choice that we made.
Alright, is it Lymeria approved? So there we have it, we finally have the new corner beam on, which is something I'm sure lots of you have been waiting to see. And while I come to think of it, our retaining wall is also as finished as it's going to be for this year. You may remember I started this about 6 weeks ago, and I have been very lucky with the weather to get to the middle of November here without freezing while I was doing concrete. It was great. The weather has now turned, it is now frozen, but that's okay. It had a good 8 or 9 days to go solid before that happened, so pretty happy. And of course we have our drainage up and installed. Nearly installed. Of course, there's a huge amount of work still to do, but the most important bit is all done.
And of course I couldn't help myself, I had to throw in another reminder of what it looked like when we started. That corner of the wall is just about where this small bush on the left is, And this is what it looked like 7 months ago when we bought the property. Been abandoned for nearly 10 years.
I still have to make our pathway down here.
One of our goals of this retaining wall is to end up with a pathway down here between the vines and the wall that I can take the sit-on mower down to the lower part of the property. I can take it round on the outside, however it is pretty sketchy at the best of times.
Oh yeah, we got rid of all the rocks down
And we
here.
just fancy a nice walkway down to the lower part of the property.
And there's even a little bit of water coming out. Not very much though. Then again, it is hardly raining. So I've got a lot to do next year still. I'm going to put some cover stones on here, make it pretty, put a cap on it, put a fence on it. You name it, we're going to do it. But it's it, and it's doing its job, which is pretty nice.
As always, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. It doesn't cost you anything and it really does help us out. We will catch you all next week. Keep safe.